Hello, welcome Cowichan. I'm up here tonight just to say thank you to all of you and all of the people who have helped us make this forum happen tonight. Thank you to all of you. And thank you for your caring about Somenos Marsh. We've been working on it for many, many years, and seeing the type of turnout and support we're getting these days, it truly humbles me and it makes me feel pretty good about the Marsh, so I thank you very much. I'm going to turn over the podium here to Lashim, and Lashim is a Cowichan elder who's going to say hello to you. Thank you.
Hi, Scott. So, welcome to you all to Cowichan Valley. I'm Arvid Charlie, this team from the Cowichan tribes. So I understand we're here to talk about the dike that's proposed. And I too would like to know more about it, because there is so many important things in the Somenos, Marsh, that we need to be aware of. So I thank you all for your interest in coming here and see what is going to happen, what is proposed. So with that, I will do a short prayer for you and all of us. Neem het testament, ik te mannen zee, het is aan te spreken, laat hem steen. Zit er veel zoals men, hij gaat naar Gewiskoya. Nou het is naast, kus is dat jij is dat kind uit naar Koya. Zoals iets. Ayuqtaatna, Somenos na Cowichan Valley. Yutamokastemnis Hukaisataka. Yutamokamstimu Huaychka, Latamste. Hunibisnes means Titamana, it is on to space, Latamste. Haichka.
Thank you. Now, I'm Paul Fletcher, by the way. I just got told off for not saying my name. And next up is Tamara Lee, who is going to moderate this session for us tonight. And she's a newcomer in the Valley, so please welcome her accordingly.
Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Paul, for opening, and Lashim for your welcome. I'd like to begin tonight by acknowledging some of the community leaders in the crowd. The Member of Parliament for Nanaimo North Cowichan, Jean Crowder. Our Member of the Legislative Assembly for the Cowichan Valley, Bill Routley. Mayor of Duncan, Phil Kent. We're also joined by North Cowichan Councillor Kate Marsh and former North Cowichan Councillor George Seymour. Thank you for making the time to come out and to listen and to be heard. This evening we're going to hear from a number of experts and opinions on stage. Each of the people on the panel will speak for 5 minutes. And then we're going to open up to questions from the floor. So you will be able to ask questions of anyone here or of everyone here, if you choose. Those questions will be limited to 2 minutes, and I am a harsh taskmaster. So I'll begin by introducing our speakers and our technical panelists. From the municipality of North Cowichan, Mayor John Lefebvre. Fisheries biologist and community member with Cowichan Tribes, Tim Kolchinsky. The Vice President of the Somenos Marsh Wildlife Society, Phil Jennings. Representing the Somenos Creek residents affected by flood elevation changes, Beth Crawford. From the Cowichan Valley Naturalists, David Polster. From the Cowichan Ag Society and National Farmers Union, Dan Ferguson. Columnist and agricultural historian, Don Maroc. And registered professional biologist and fisheries expert, Brian Tucci. Our technical experts from the municipality of North Cowichan, our Chief Administrative Officer, Dave Davana, Director of Engineering and Operations, John McKay, and Manager of Engineering for Infrastructure and Environment, Clay Rietzma. So just to reiterate, our purpose in coming together tonight is to listen, to learn, and to share perspectives on diking and development in the Somenos Marsh. There are many perspectives and many stories to be told, and I hope that we can come to this conversation with an open and compassionate heart to learn, to listen, and to share. We'll begin with Mayor John Lafleur. John?
Thank you. I hope I'm not in trouble if I don't have 5 minutes, a 5-minute speech altogether.
It's all right.
I would like to thank first the Somenos Marsh Society for arranging this evening, and I think that was a great thing to do and very useful for the community. And I'd like to thank all of you who came out tonight on a Friday night to hear this discussion. From my point of view, the more opinions that we can hear, the more values we can understand regarding the marsh, the better. And that will help us, I hope, to make better decisions. And we do have decisions on the lands around the marsh. North Cowichan has participated in the Somenos Marsh Management Committee for a number of years and worked well with Somenos Marsh Society on projects like the dock and the outdoor classroom, and we hope to continue to work on aspects of the marsh, including removal of invasive species, working on the conservation area, and other issues in the marsh. At the same time, we know that we're involved in controversial issues around diking and the possible selection of an RCMP site on a corner of a property that we own. So there are some issues. I'd really like to hear from you, your opinions on that, and we have, I can't quite see, but is Councillor Lyons is, I think, up there? Yes, as well from our council. So we're here to listen and get your opinions, and I'm really looking forward to what everyone on the panel has to say. Thank you. Oh, and I should thank staff as well for coming out on a Friday night.
Should thank everyone for coming out on a Friday night. Thank you, John. Offering his opening comments, Tim Kolchinsky.
I would really like to thank everybody, thank the esteemed panel. I really appreciate having the opportunity to come and share in the discussions. I work as a biologist for Cowichan tribes. I should say, though, I am here as a community member. I am familiar with some individual or components or aspects of the diking, and have been called in, sort of parachuted in to deal with some of the issues, but I haven't worked with the diking issues as a whole. But I will do my best to bring forward different concerns and thoughts. As a community member, throughout my lifetime, and comments from community members and elders, reiterate concerns and impacts to the system that have come about over many generations here in the Cowichan system. The Cowichan system is part and parcel to the Somenos system in that it's a unique situation in Somenos Creek in that later on in the winter months or in the higher water flows, the Somenos Creek actually flows both ways. So it's kind of a unique system in that Somenos Lake is so low comparatively that during the high water in the river, it actually backflows up into Somenos Lake. I would also like to mention that the Somenos system is a really important area to Cowichan. There's a long-standing history and relationship with Somenos Lake. There was a village site not far from the Forest Museum. That's not well known, but that's one of the aspects that have been coming out thanks to people like my Shwantnik, Laschin, Arva Charlie, and his experience with our elders of the day. One of the other really big aspects of the Somenos system that was of real importance to Cowichan, during the high water flows, the Somenos system and the creeks that fed into Somenos were extremely important for coho. So as many of you know, in the Cowichan River, as soon as the water levels rise and the fish start coming in, the water becomes completely obscured at times, especially with really high advanced flows. So if the high flows come early in the season, it means areas like Somenos Lake, which were incredible areas for spawning and rearing of coho in particular. For those of you that don't know coho salmon, the coho are unlike Chinook. Chinook will come into the Cowichan River, migrate up to just below the lake, and especially the fall run predominantly spawns just below the lake. Chinook, despite their size, come upstream, travel to the really small, in some instances ephemeral streams, and spawn in these tiny little systems. Coho are also, unlike many of the other salmon species, is in their practice of staying in system for a year, in some instances up to 2 years. So the smaller side channel habitat areas are absolutely crucial. Now, for anyone that's seen maps of the ephemeral streams in places like the mainland, all of the ephemeral streams in many systems have been completely wiped out. And as a result, we've seen massive declines in coho populations. We're now seeing a slow, small rebuilding of coho. There's the hope that there will actually be a greater show this year, but I know there's real complexity. We have infrastructure and resources, and there's a real balance. I appreciate being able to come and share and discuss and trying to define the best balance on an issue that's difficult, if not impossible, to balance adequately. But I would just appreciate the opportunity to come and share some concerns about coho in particular. With that, thank you everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Tim. Phil Jennings from the Somenos Marsh Wildlife Society.
I'm a relatively newcomer to the Somenos Marsh Society, just about 2.5 years. And one of the things that we have been trying to do is to look at the entire marsh area and the basin as a single entity with multiple stewards working together. So tonight, I'd like to share some of my personal beliefs and values for the development of sensitive ecological areas within our community. This is not just the marsh area, but anywhere where there is a sensitive ecological area. I believe the Somenos Marsh Conservation Area is an active ecosystem underground, on the surface, and above the surface, including its land, water, and air, and all living things that dwell there or use this sensitive area. I believe the Somenos area is a key natural asset of the Cowichan Valley. I believe the values of the Somenos area include agricultural area, agricultural use, fish and bird habitat, water cleansing, stormwater management. We as a society, and I particularly do believe in a fair and inclusive community development process for the active management decision-making processes affecting all sensitive natural assets of the Cowichan Valley. Areas north and south of the new dike are related, they're not divorced. The dike did not create vacant land or a dry and a wet site, but it did create a surface barrier between two parts of a connected whole, creating challenges for the marsh's ecosystem. Past development on the marsh has created challenges for people and for the remaining open marsh. Much of the development around the marsh drains into the marsh. Therefore, any contaminants that drain into that ever-shrinking area is expected to be rehabilitated before it goes out into the downstream water. There are 8 values that I'd like to raise around looking at development in sensitive ecosystems valley. You may have read recently in the paper, Gene Crowder has put in the smart growth is more than just avoiding urban sprawl, and there are 10 points there. And Gene, I'd like to thank you for putting that in there, and these I hope are complementary to those. First, the land and what is in and on it is for all people and all creatures. Humans can develop land, control the plants and animal domains, and use natural resources for benefit and gain. But they should not do this without serious consideration to the impacts. Open community dialogue must be used as part of a principled decision-making process before any actions are taken that could exploit or harm these assets. Second, what we do to our world in each generation affects future generations, and I see that we have more than one generation here, which is great. No generation has a right to steal opportunities to experience the things in our world from another generation. No generation should harm our world or species within it. All generations have the responsibility and authority to preserve it for all generations. Third, we must have a sense of a human ecology, promoting human relationships and interactions that respects the dignity and opinion of the communities, fosters a good-for-all solution, and respects our natural assets. All voices need to be heard when sensitive area development is being discussed. Fourth, we must practice deep, responsible, and active stewardship. Conservation areas are not ours to own, but it is a gift for us to use that we are called to protect, enjoy its variety of life, and cultivate or develop it without damaging living things within it. Fifth, care for the environment is a moral issue. Every decision made about sensitive ecosystem lands will affect people or other living things. Therefore, we must consider every decision from a known moral perspective. Options against survival of the fittest and power controls must serve as the basis of community development decision-making. Sixth, communities develop an intergenerational solidarity between individuals, people, and political organizations. We must preserve sensitive areas for future generations. Seventh, certain places in our world foster human spirituality. Wetlands, marshes, and bogs have for many centuries and by many different cultures been associated with spirituality and a sense of communion between a creator, humans, creatures, and plants. We must allow these places of peace to continue to provide a sense of transcendence for those who see it in their lives and within their beliefs. The last point, we must balance solutions and decision-making by more than just financial and convenience factors. We must act consciously in our development decisions to say what we should by doing good and doing no harm. We must make the right decisions, not just good ones. We must use sound policy-based decision-making with sensitive land use policies published by local governments and acceptable to communities. We must have full cooperation between communities and government through open and honest, fruitful and meaningful dialogue before decisions about sensitive area usage are made. We must be able to eliminate adverse effects on our wetlands when deciding how to use these lands while achieving benefits for people and sensitive areas themselves. Our society would like to see the proposed excluded ALR properties left in the conservation area. We are not against a new police station or development in the right place. We do believe any development on the recommended excluded land is a false economy and endangering to the benefits the Marsh area provides or could provide. ALR land cannot be seen as vacant future development properties. ALR land within the Marsh serves many purposes, and trying to trade off one piece for another is like moving the shells in a game of sleight of hand. To use the rationale that land recommended for removal is cheaper and conveniently located, to me is the same order of thinking as saying it's good to buy cheap and easily available clothes regardless of where they are made. Decisions that may be seen as good by one part of society may not be right for the larger community. Our marsh has a history and a heritage as a vibrant living place that helps to feed people, birds, fish, and animals. Let us use sound judgment to make the right decisions for the current and future populations of our valley. There must be no allowance for removal of any ALR land for residential, commercial, or industrial development from this sensitive area. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. Representing the residents of the Somenos Creek area, Beth Crawford.
Hello everyone, my name is Beth Crawford and I own a home on Seine Road. I am here today representing the residents of my street and other concerned neighbors. I am not someone who does a great deal of public speaking, but I'm extremely grateful that we have been provided this opportunity to make our concerns public. I want to extend my sincere thanks to the organizers, and I hope that each of you in the audience who have concerns will also make your voices heard tonight and in the future. Our group, consisting of residents of Seine Road, Timbercrest, and Quamachin Park, is deeply concerned about not only our homes and the parkland we adjoin, but the many decisions that have already been made and are about to be made by local government that will have serious consequences for citizens and the natural environment in the Cowichan Valley. Our group was born out of frustration, confusion, and fear with the manner in which our local government has in the past and continues to deal with issues that affect the members of our community. Due to the diligence of a couple of neighbors in the early part of the summer, the residents of Seine Road and Quamachin Park discovered that our homes were under the new 200-year flood level. This change occurred without any notice or any consultation. We also discovered that North Cowichan had plans to build a second dike to compensate for problems created by the new dike that has been constructed along the south side of Somenos Creek. This new dike replaced one that ran parallel with Beverly Street. The new dike was relocated closer to the south side of Somenos Creek, eliminating a significant amount of catchment area. It was also significantly increased in height. Our homes backed onto a park, Somenos Creek, and a cornfield in the agricultural land reserve. The cornfield has been effectively eliminated with an overconstructed, unvegetated dike that has already impacted the privacy and peace we once had. Seine Road is one of the residential gems in the Cowichan Valley. Ironically, we have been reminded of this fact on more than one occasion with notices from North Cowichan. The following is a quote from a letter from North Cowichan to residents of Seine Road. It states, "Your property backs onto a sensitive riparian area that drains to Somenos Creek. This is a valuable wetland area and its health is important to preserving your property's value. In order to protect the creek's aesthetic and environmental value, as well as your property's value, each homeowner has a part to play. end quote. The letter goes on to describe how vital the riparian area is, and it must not be disturbed within 30 meters of the property's high water mark. The letter from North Cowichan also states that fish and other animals rely on the creek. We feel that the lack of consultation by North Cowichan is unacceptable. We have suffered a great deal of stress thinking that our homes are in danger and with the knowledge that we are in a no-win situation between a floodplain and a dike. The loss of value in what for most of us is our largest investment has caused a great deal of anxiety. Everything from simple renovation plans to life-changing retirement plans have been put on hold. We feel like we have been at the whim of politicians and bureaucrats who do not seem to have much regard for the citizens whose lives they are altering. We are here today with the hope that we can move forward in a more consultative process. We ask that local governments come together and stop dealing with issues in a piecemeal manner. We need to take a step back and look at the broader picture with an eye toward the future. I look at this forum not as an opportunity to lay blame, but to open the door to working together towards solutions. Hopefully, other measures will be considered to manage flood levels that do not involve reducing valuable marshlands, nature's means of flood control. Reducing gravel deposits in the Cowichan River is one possible solution, along with ensuring proper drainage is in place prior to commercial development. As the date for this forum has drawn closer, North Cowichan has indicated they are rethinking flood levels and the necessity of a second dike on the north side of Somenos Creek. However, there are still many unanswered questions, and we residents are left with the following concerns. The destruction of parkland and wildlife that inhabits it. The fact that our homes bordered parkland and property in the ALR meant that we had homes that would only continue to appreciate in value. This uncertainty now leaves us wondering about our homes' values, our property's ability to be mortgaged and insured. Aside from our homes not being in a floodplain when we purchased them, we also understood that the ALR property could not be developed and it would remain a peaceful area. We want to know what will happen to the homes that are still considered below the adjusted flood levels. We are also curious why the existing dike was moved and what the impacts of the reduction of catchment area are. I would like to thank you for listening and thank you for your attendance.
Thank you very much, Beth. From the Cowichan Valley Naturalists, David Polster.
Okay, I wanted to talk tonight about resilience. And I use the term resilience in the sense that Buzz Holling used it in his paper in 1973. You have the next. Talking about the stability of ecosystems and stability of ecological systems. We understand what happens when we don't have resilient systems. You know, in Colorado, just this past summer, we had some devastating flooding. There was some devastating flooding in Winnipeg recently, Calgary, and of course, you're familiar with the flooding in Duncan. All of these are evidence of a lack of resilience, right? There are things that we've done that have reduced resilience in the ecosystems around the Cowichan Valley. Building dikes is one of them. Smooth surfaces that don't create biodiversity reduce resilience. We build shopping malls and wonder why we get lots of runoff, reducing resilience. We open up golf courses on the top of mountains and wonder why we have floods. I work on large open pit mines, and a lot of those are a lot more beautiful than the cliffs over Maple Bay. So, you know, lots of things in our watershed reduce resilience. And we need to start paying attention to these things, because otherwise we're going to end up with major problems. Basically, when we degrade our watershed, we end up losing resilience. So what can we do about it? Of course, not building in the floodplain is one thing. If we just keep the developments away from the floodplain. If we avoid approving houses that use fill to raise above flood elevations. If we purchase homes that are in the floodplain and allow the floodplain to expand. If we don't use the floodplain as part of a diking scheme, put the dikes up against the high ground, not on the floodplain. Move dikes back from the river so that there's room for the river to expand. There's a whole bunch of areas that could be used. We don't need to dike fields, agricultural fields. They're designed to flood in the wintertime. Similarly, ballparks and parking lots and stuff could take a little bit of water every few years without much damage. Why would we bother diking a golf driving range that is in the ALR? And of course, Somenos Marsh. Why would we dike floodplain areas like Somenos Marsh? In addition, the area around the police station, the existing police station, should be returned to the marsh. It is part of the Somenos Marsh area. We don't think of it like that, but it is. And surely we should not be putting our police station in an area where it's going to be subjected to future flooding. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. David, I believe you flew in for this tonight as well, okay?
Pardon?
I heard you were out of town until recently and came back, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right. And from the Cowichan Agricultural Society and National Farmers Union, Dan Ferguson.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to say I'm just naturally adamantly opposed to subdivision or exclusion of land from the agricultural land reserve. It's precious little land. If we look at BC as a whole, it's only 2% of our land mass. The unfortunate part is it's all in the valley bottoms and then easy to develop, and I think we really need an attitude adjustment on that. As a vice president of the Cowichan Agricultural Society, I brought forward a motion to the Cowichan Valley Regional District's Agricultural Advisory Commission. And I had a quorum, and then we voted on it. There's 9 of us voted to write a letter to the ALC from the commission opposing the police station. And as I said, we won. And the letter was to be sent. But on a technicality, the technicality being me, I was an alternate, so they nixed my vote, and then we didn't have a quorum. So that was done after the meeting, behind closed doors. I'm not really very happy about it, and I wanted to make that very publicly clear. I think that democracy was done a disservice there. The agricultural land around the Somenos Marsh should be used for many different ways. We could be using it as incubator farms for youngsters, up-and-comers. We got a college going in with an agricultural department. We could be using it in the future for allotments for people in the city that want to grow their own gardens but don't have the means to. We could be planting bird seed in there for the winter birds that don't seem to migrate as much as they used to. There's many things that we probably don't even understand that could be used for, but if it's put under pavement, we'll never have the opportunity to use it. And I think that we really need to stop the erosion of our agricultural land reserve. And the only thing we should be doing with it is adding more to it for subsequent generations.
Thank you, Dan. And bringing a historical perspective to the agricultural development in the Marsh area, Don Maroc.
Welcome, all of you. I hope we get a chance to hear every single one of you with your expressions about the Marsh area. I believe that's what we're here for tonight, to inform our elected officials that all of what they are doing is not necessarily what we want done. There's a difficulty with politicians, after spending 24 years as a journalist with them here in town. Up till the election, they seem very interested in the public, and then they lose interest. So you're going to have to speak loudly and plainly for them to hear you. But we certainly want to hear it, because this area that we're talking about is not replaceable. When we mess up a piece of it, it's messed up, and it's going to stay that way. I think maybe we have to include in our ideas of what to do with the creek and the lake and the marsh is perhaps let Mother Nature do a good deal more than we have let her do. I think we don't have to plan too well for that. And if I can, just closing on the ALR, I have a good friend that's an old politician and a loudmouth, and he has one idea for the ALR. Do away with the ALC, that's the Agricultural Land Commission. If they're not there, you can't take it out of the ALR. So that takes up about a minute of my 5. Now, if I can give you those other 4 minutes, will you please come up to the microphones and give us your expressions? That's what we want to hear tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our last speaker this evening is Brian Tootie. Brian Tootie is the person who coined the phrase, the breadbasket of the Cowichan, in reference to the Somenos Marsh. Brian.
Hello, everyone. My name's Brian Tootie. Good. It's very Irish. But I'm glad to hear all of you express interest in the Somenos Marsh. Why? Well, salmon don't vote. They don't talk. And I was asked very quickly to come and perhaps talk for the fish. Why? Well, it started 40 years ago when I was a young biologist and asked to get involved in the Somenos. I didn't know where the Somenos was, actually. But I wanted to go back to what Tim said. And I want to keep it simple and extremely basic to understand that coho salmon live in the marsh in the winter. Not the big ones, the little ones. Why? Because when the river floods and it's high in energy, these little guys have got to get out of town. And most of the lower river has been put in a straitjacket over the years, and they rush to sea too early and die. But those that can figure out that they can get off the main channel, up into the backwaters, that's the great grocery store for them. It's the safe haven. It's the breadbasket where they can stay the winter, grow like crazy in the spring, and then go to sea as smolts. The Somenos is the overwintering habitat. It's not the spawning habitat. They spawn further up. They spend the summer in the Cowichan with the inner tubes and have fun. They grow there, but they have to get off channel in the fall, right now. This big rainstorm we're about to get is the trigger. They'll want to get away from the energy. They move down and seek off-channel habitats. One of the biggest and most beautiful off-channel habitats on Vancouver Island is right out your door. It's fantastic. Who would think some of the pictures you saw of the farmers' fields? In the winter, they're in there amongst the straw, the bushes, the shrubs. They're hanging out. They're saving their energy. And in the spring, they'll grow. They'll grow quickly, and then they'll go to seed. Why do I know that? Well, one little anecdote. When I was a young biologist at the early 80s, and I'll finish on this point, I did a lot of strip casting for coho, and I saw gulls always diving on herring balls. But these gulls were diving in shallow ponds around the Somenos. Now these ponds were fields that weren't ditched. They're essentially lenses, dishes of water. And as the water dropped, the coho that were in there feeding couldn't get out. And the gulls were diving down and picking them off. And I thought, isn't that interesting? That's when we realized that all fields should be ditched so that they don't perch and hold water late into the spring. So that was an anecdote from the 70s, and we learned from that. It's not summer habitat for coho, but it's a glorious winter habitat. As an old English biologist said one time, if you don't take care of it, it'll go away. The fish will go away, and they'll never come back. Thank you.
Brian Tutty, thank you. Excellent, my apologies. And so now we open it to questions from the floor. This is your opportunity to step up. We have 2 microphones, one on either side. You'll have 2 minutes to make your point or your question, and we're all ears and answers. No, don't be shy. There's Gwen Spicer, he's never shy.
Okay, this whole thing about developing agricultural land reserve and forests seems to be a continuous song from our illustrious leaders. Now, to me, a leader looks forward and sees what's going on and does the best he can for everyone, for the whole situation. Well, I do not see this with the development that's allowed to happen. This goes way back. You think by now they would learn. It's a floodplain. You build houses on a floodplain. This is crazy. So now we're even tightening up that loose, strangling the Somenos Marsh with these dikes. And these dikes are hugely high. Now, if the flooding gets even half that high, it will totally change the whole character of the marsh. The marsh is meant to spread out. The water is meant to be shallow, but in an open area. We don't have that anymore. And now we're making it 10 times worse with these dikes. Now these dikes, I can see them going all the way up the highway and forming the marsh into a lake. I mean, a marsh is a cleansing aspect of our natural environment. We're destroying this. We're destroying this nest for all these wild creatures. And we eat away at it. Each council seems to eat a little more here, a little more there. We lost, I've been protesting all these developments in these natural areas pretty much since I moved here. And that includes Mount Zuhalem, which is an obvious thing, is Echo Heights. Let's nibble away at Echo Heights. Let's get as much as we can. Well, we can't get 80, let's get 60, let's get 20, let's get something. You don't need to get anything. It is what it is right now as a marsh. Don't destroy it. This is my comment, this is my request to you, is don't destroy this marsh.
Quick look over at the other side. Is there anyone here? Movement towards the microphone. As you come to the microphone, if you could state your name before your question or comment, that would be very helpful. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dorothea Bandman, and I was at a meeting in Cowichan Station a few weeks ago about the water, and I was very shocked to hear that apparently some of the fill in the dike is toxic waste. And I would like to know from somebody, somewhere, why that statement was made from a member of the CBRD.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to turn to our technical staff because I know that there was testing of the material that was used in the dike. Clay, can you answer that one?
I'm not quite sure what material you're referring to. I heard some rumblings about contaminated material going into the dikes. And my understanding is the material was coming from the Indian Road site west of Allenby Bridge. So we met with a conservation officer and had some discussions about that. And we did have that material tested. It's a normal practice when we're bringing material from a site where we think there might be a problem. The contractor who was constructing the dikes actually put that material there from another project, so they knew the material well, and in fact it wasn't contaminated, so I think that's simply rumors.
Next question.
I've been hearing a lot of good words about this issue, and a lot of good articles in the newspaper, people writing in. What I would like to add is, how on earth does this ever make sense, just from the move from that marsh that they're in for the RCMP? How does it make sense to go from there to jump from the pot to the frying pan is what they're doing? Now they complain about the damp or soggy, rat-infested place, trying to play on our idea that we have to support them. How on earth am I going to have respect for the RCMP when they're going to do something like this? Go along with it, for Pete's sake. This idea of taking over land like that, when they can go anywhere else. They don't need that land. And I would lose a lot of respect for council and the RCMP if this goes about, because it just doesn't make sense. For one thing, if they're going to be putting fill in, why can't they rent somewhere else and put the fill in their property they already have there? And then go up instead of out. They need more room? Fine, go up. Like the apartment next door. Or are they getting offended because that's kind of a low rent? That they're beside a low rent deal now? No. That obviously is zoned for higher level because of the apartments, so there's no excuse there. And it would make more sense to me. There's all kinds of places that could be rented, things that have been suggested in the paper by other people. But I just wanted to really make my point there that I will lose a lot of respect for any of the people involved or wanting this to go through when there's so many alternatives. Thank you.
Mayor Lefevre, would you like to respond to that?
I think, just to be clear, really, this will be a decision.
Hold on. Phil, our sound guy. John, our mayor guy.
Okay, thank you. Just to be very clear, the decisions around the location of the new RCMP site will be decisions of North Cowichan Council. So please don't lose any respect for the RCMP. We're going to be the ones that are responsible for that decision, and we have to take the heat. The RCMP are in a very uncomfortable situation, an older building that's in poor shape, it's not big enough, It's our responsibility as a council to find a new home, and we do talk to them. We have asked them if the proposed site would suit their needs. They said yes, it would suit their needs. They're not involved in the discussion that we're having tonight, so please don't bring the RCMP in it. If you're unhappy with anyone, you're probably unhappy with me and council for considering this.
Mayor Littlegear, if I may, from the podium, ask the question that was implied in that last comment, which is, what is it about this site that the municipality feels is most appropriate for an RCMP station?
Sure. There are two key things. Number one, we own the site, so there's no additional cost to use part of that site.
We are the people. Just because you own it doesn't mean it's free.
Thank you. So that's one part of it. The second part is there's good access to the highway through a controlled intersection, and so from a logistical point of view, it makes sense. Actually, there is a third point too. We would like to have the new RCMP site in a downtown location. We don't have to, and certainly we urge you all to express your opinion tonight, and if you don't think that's appropriate, we're here to hear from you.
Thank you. Microphone number 2.
Hello, my name is Shelby. I live on Seine Road, and it's just basically a comment from someone in the neighborhood. My family is new to the area. We stumbled across a beautiful home that was for sale last late winter, and I had no idea the land surrounding it. Like everyone has said, it's a gem, and it's a hidden gem, and we bought our home being told that the land behind it will not be developed, that it's there for the community to enjoy. And all winter and spring, I sat in my sunroom facing the creek, and I would sit there and watch the birds and the wildlife, ducks, everything, just living life in that creek behind my house and enjoying it so much. And to find out that it could be taken away from us, or that something could be built that's going to possibly have people walking behind our home now, not same level, but looking down into our yards as that other dike was proposed. But just anything to damage what we have behind our homes. It's a wonderful community we have, and I feel so blessed to be living in this area. And it's just my comment. I just really hope that a lot of thought is put into any kind of development that happens, if there's going to be anything, that it doesn't wreck the beauty that we get to enjoy for free every day in our own homes.
Red vest, number 2.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Lazenby, and I live right beside the Somenos Gary Oak Preserve. My biggest thing over the course of this past summer was listening to the noise across the marsh as the dike was developed. Bulldozers started as early as 6 in the morning. 5:30, okay. And how is a RCMP station, a hospital with round-the-clock lights, noise going to affect the migration, the wildlife in the Somenos? It's not going to work. And the other thing is air traffic is going to start playing a factor in that area as well. And I think that these are some points that not everybody thinks about when we talk about development. Thank you.
Is there a biologist among us who would care to respond to that? Sorry, is there a biologist who would care to respond to that? Or anyone at the table who would like to add something to that comment? Hearing none. Let's turn it back to you. Microphone number 1.
There is someone who wanted to respond.
Oh, there is. Central. Oh, sorry, Phil. Excellent. Sorry, one moment, please.
Mic number 3.
I think now I have a mic. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. One of the concerns I think that does come up, and a comment that I heard reflected something that I saw at the University Village open house, and I don't know if that was the basis of your comment about the hospital, but there was discussion that there are 4 potential things that can happen in the University Village area, and the hospital was a possibility. The police station was a possibility. Sub-campus for Vancouver Island University, and I forget the 4th thing. But it is potentially an area in which emergency vehicles could be. Emergency vehicles, 24 hours a day, make noise. There will be an impact. How much impact? I don't know. Perhaps there is a biologist who can speak to that. But I also am concerned with emergency vehicles from a different perspective. And again, at the University Village open house, I looked at some ICBC statistics about crashes. And Beverly and the Trans-Canada Highway is a high area of crash. So I went to the ICBC site, and I noticed that the highest in Duncan appears to be Trunk and the highway. It makes sense. People are going and coming from malls. They're going into the city of Duncan. The second highest that I could see was indeed Beverly and the Trans-Canada Highway. Again, we have a lot of things attracting people there. So my concern would be if emergency services were going in there, we would need to have a way to minimize the effect of potential increases of crashes in that area with the number of vehicles moving through there and moving through there very quickly.
Back to microphone number 1.
My name is Maureen Gallagher, and I'd already spoken to the mayor on the telephone about the marsh, the frail marsh. And I just wonder tonight what our forefathers and foremothers must be thinking about the so-called perhaps destruction of this beautiful area. Many of the boardwalks there have the names of people who have died and have left their names. Their families have put the names on the boardwalks. They have put in donations to the Somenos Marsh. It's a wonderful place to walk and see the names that go back in history of Duncan. And I came to live here in 1960, and I am just appalled that they were even talking about building on the marsh. Thank you.
Microphone number 2.
My name is Sean Pattenden. I'm a resident, taxpayer of North Cowichan, longtime resident. I live up on the Quamachans Heights area, and all this past year and late last year I'd be walking to work and downtown. I'd be noticing all the fervent activity building the dike, and especially caught my attention in the last winter, and 2 questions popped in my mind. The first of which was, why are these people building a dike near a creek during the wet season? Isn't there a certain time of year where they're restricted doing that? So I would like maybe North Cowichan to answer that question in a moment. Another question, of course, came to my mind, and I think it's come to everybody's mind here. What impact is it having on the marsh? But so those are the first question that I'd like to have answered. But here's another question. There's about, I think, 5 members on the panel here now. All are represent the Somenos Management Committee. And would somebody please tell me, did the Somenos Management Committee ever get together and talk about, A, the plan for this dike to begin with, back in whenever it was, after the big flood of '09, and B, this whole idea of having the police station on North Cowichan land by Beverly Street?
Thank you. Would you like to begin with a response to the dike construction and impacts on the marsh?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to turn to probably Clay in terms of construction of the dike. Of course, there are certainly limits to when you can work in terms of the weather. Clay?
Can you pull up slide 4, please? That would be the flood protection map.
My laptop did this today too. Okay, are AV guys up in the booth? Mike? Team? Becca? Help! Slide 4, please. It's frozen. Okay. This is where I do a little soft shoe. Okay. Perhaps, Phil, would you like to field the question then on the Somenos Management Committee involvement in the planning for the dike?
I can address
We need the microphone on for Phil. That's mic 3.
Is it on? Yeah. I can address only 2 meetings that I was at as an observer for the Somenos Management Committee. Paul Fletcher is the chair of that committee, and he would know better, and from that perspective, to answer the question as to what involvement the Somenos Management Committee had in discussion around the dike and the police station. He would be a better person to speak to that. But I know the 2 meetings that I was at, one of them being this morning, there was a lot of discussion that did go on, but those are very recent meetings. Paul, would you mind addressing that question, please? Oh, Dave?
Dave Foster.
Well,
Mike 5.
as far as I recall, my mic on? No. Hello? Oh, there we go. As far as I recall, there was no discussion with the Somenos Management Committee of the diking before it was basically a fait accompli.
Excuse me?
Okay.
Can I speak?
Certainly. David Devane?
I have a list here. On October 19th, we talked about the Tier 1 dike with the Somenos Management Committee, which is the dike that went around the sewage lagoon, and we also talked that in the final phases that it would go up to TCH. On November 22nd, 2011, we talked about the Tier 2 dike, which is the Lakes Beverly dike, and we also talked about the impacts about going around the Fun Pacific property, which we ended up not doing. February 18th, again, we talked about the dikes. June 12th, we talked about the diking again and the final alignment around the Fun Pacific property. And finally, on February 19th, 2013, we discussed the dikes and the possible exclusion.
Okay. Anything further to add?
Yeah, just would like to, I'm sorry, if there's no more on that, just ask Clay or John to speak to the timing of construction of the dike in terms of the weather and time of year.
So the question is when did we build them or why did we build
Yeah,
them?
the gentleman I think thought that perhaps you were building during the wet season.
Believe me, we didn't want to do that. Can everybody hear me without the mic?
And there may have been a concern also about conflicts with the fishery window.
Most of the dikes have been built under far from ideal conditions given, I'm speaking about weather conditions. Part of the reason for that is the way the funding was rolled out and the dates that funding was awarded and the amount of time that it takes to get the necessary approval to build the dikes. So we would prefer to build them in the summertime, but again, the timing of the award just didn't allow us to do that. Does that answer the question?
What about the nesting season?
The nesting seasons? What about the nesting seasons was the question?
When we were building the dikes, we had to undertake environmental assessments as part of each of the projects. And so all of the conditions of the CEA, Canadian Environmental Assessment Act, were met in the constructing of the dikes. So nesting times were considered and addressed.
Okay, take this to microphone number 1. It's nice to see lineups on both mics. We're going to alternate back and forth.
Hello, my name is Joanne Circle, and one thing that occurred to me is I know that some of the people, first of all, I want to thank all of the people sitting on the panel, their willingness to sit together, listen to one another, and also to give all of us the opportunity to express ourselves. And I hope everybody takes a moment to do that, seeing we don't have a referendum on this. One thing I did notice is that some of the people sitting on the panel really enjoy swimming at the Aquinas Center. I myself am one of those people who enjoy swimming. And I'm thinking of all of our relations, all of those things from little water bugs to the coho, the birds that come to visit and feed. Please, we know what it is to have that clean water in the pool to swim and enjoy. So please think about all of our relations that enjoy that water at Somenos Marsh. Think of them, please. We are their voice. And also, I don't know how everybody feels, but I know when I'm driving through Duncan, there is an angst with all of the traffic, all of the lights, all of the little businesses. But when I come to that place of Somenos, I breathe. I have a moment of really feeling space. That's invaluable. There's not a measurement to that. So sometimes we have to take into account things that aren't measurable. And again, thank you so much for sitting together. And it's so important that we dialogue on this. Thank you.
Thank you.